Pernida is one of the select few Sternritter who has made it into Yhwach's elite guard, the Schutzstaffel. Over the course of the story, Pernida is revealed to be the left hand of the Soul King, as it governs over progress. When it was first revealed, Pernida had no real personality as it didn't really speak, but over the course of its battle against Mayuri, it had slowly started to mumble and form speech. Pernida is quickly revealed to be very arrogant and overconfident, as it mocks Mayuri by imitating his laugh after having defeated his modified Bankai. Pernida takes a lot of pride in its identity as a QUINCY, and it is visibly irritated when this is questioned. At the beginning of episode 24, when we have that flashback from 1,000 years ago, we had seen Ichibei bring Pernida with him to the human world, back when he had attempted to form a truce with Yhwach and his Empire of Light. When Yhwach had refused Ichibei's offer for a truce, he had activated the Almighty, but at that moment, Ichibei had summoned Pernida, as it had then possessed the body of Yhwach and had prevented him from using the Almighty. Sometime following this, Pernida had split from Yhwach and had identified itself as a QUINCY, as it was enlisted into Yhwach's Sternritter, being a part of Yhwach's very own Schutzstaffel. Similar to Gerard Valkyrie, Pernida wasn't really bestowed a schrift by Yhwach. This is because both Pernida and Gerard are body parts of the Soul King, so they had inherently possessed special abilities from birth. Because of this, Yhwach had ascribed a letter to their abilities. Pernida was given the letter C for the Compulsory. In this video, I want to break down and analyze everything that we know about Pernida's schrift ability. I'll be talking about every time that it was utilized within the story, and how the Compulsory was such a formidable schrift ability that it had posed a significant challenge even to Shinigami like Senjumaru, Yoruichi, and even Kenpachi. So without further delay, let's break down the schrift ability, the Compulsory. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Holo Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. Pernida uses the Compulsory for the very first time within chapter 599. This is following Senjumaru having summoned a massive guard in order to battle against the Schutzstaffel. The Compulsory was used to compress and contort this gigantic guard, and Pernida uses the schrift again in chapter 600 in order to clean up the mess that Lil Barrow had made after shooting Senjumaru through the head. By using the Compulsory, it was able to compress the body of Senjumaru into a ball so that it would not be in the way of Yhwach. These first two very brief displays of its schrift ability highlight just how deadly of a power it is. Because Pernida governs over progress, it has control over the concept of evolution. Pernida is able to constantly evolve and enhance itself, both physically as well as psychologically. Due to its advanced evolution, it is able to adapt while in battle in order to survive. This adaptive evolutionary power is as a result of being able to learn from anything that Pernida's nerves make contact with. When making contact with the body of Kenpachi Zaraki, it had evolved itself to the power level of Kenpachi, and it had also copied the layer shedding ability of Mayuri's modified Bankai. In chapter 643, we see Pernida also have the power to evolve by absorbing and consuming the biological mass of others. By doing so, the QUINCY gains the abilities of that said individual. This further highlights just how terrifying Pernida's base abilities are without even taking into consideration the Compulsory. Pernida can also manipulate its body by removing the fingers or growing additional parts on itself, and one of the key powers that Pernida possesses is the ability to copy itself. When one of Pernida's fingers is removed from its body, then it's able to create a copy of itself from that severed finger. Pernida's opponents can distinguish a clone from the real Pernida by the fact that a copy only has a single pupil in its eye and it doesn't have the Hagal rune on its wrist. exist. These clones of Pernida also have the power to utilize the Compulsory. In chapter 643, we had seen that these clones can also reshape and reform even after taking a great deal of damage. Thanks to its cloning ability, Pernida also has the power to regenerate, as it can regrow any body parts that it loses, including its fingers. It appears as though there are no limits to its regenerative abilities, as even when its body was destroyed in chapter 643, Pernida was able to completely reform itself in a very short amount of time. Pernida's full standing was not revealed within the manga, but in the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, during episode 25, we did in fact get to see its holy form, as it sprouts these golden colored wings which are shaped in the form of hands, along with this star-shaped halo above its head. During Pernida's anime exclusive battle against Kiryu Hikifune, it had used its wings in order to grab and attack its opponent, and it was also able to fly through the air at high speeds with its wings. So now that we know the basic abilities of Pernida, it's time to talk about its schrift ability, the Compulsory. Essentially, the Compulsory involves Pernida firing off nerves from its fingers, as these then extend into the body of its opponent, thus allowing Pernida to forcibly control his target's body part. In chapter 636, we see Pernida's nerves enter the right arm of Kenpachi, as his broken arm begins to continuously twist on its own. Kenpachi, knowing that Pernida would only continue to control more of his body, is forced to rip off his own arm. Upon removing his arm, it continues to twist and contort until it becomes a puddle of blood. Mayuri even convinced Kenpachi that it was a wise decision to rip off his arm, because his entire body would have been twisted and contorted into a meatball. In chapter 643, after firing several nerves into the body of Nemu, Pernida was able to instantly detonate her body, reducing her to nothing. In chapter 619, Pernida had appeared behind Yoruichi and had instantly contorted her left arm, as she was shocked by the power that was just used against her. In chapter 635, we see it break Kenpachi's right arm, and then in the following chapter, it breaks both of Kenpachi's legs. In chapter 638, Mayuri observes that Pernida is able to run its nerves through inorganic matter, as the nerves spread through the ground, as Pernida shapes and controls the surface into a gigantic hand which towers over Mayuri. It can also fire its nerves alongside the walls of buildings in order to create giant arms, which it uses to attack its opponents with. In chapter 638, we see Pernida utilize the Compulsory from one of its severed fingers. Now, it seems like the condition for the Compulsory to work in a severed body part is for an eye to appear on that body part, thus allowing Pernida to remotely use the Compulsory. In chapter 656, Askin reveals that both Pernida and Gerard are the only QUINCYs which Yhwach did not grant powers to, as they were already born with very unique abilities, thus confirming that Pernida, the left hand of the Soul King, was born with the Compulsory. Now, there are a few limitations when it comes to Pernida's schrift ability. In chapter 636, Mayuri quickly deduces that Pernida's powers can be countered by taking advantage of its exposed nerves. Mayuri releases acid which makes contact with several nerves which are fired towards him. Pernida reacts in pain, as seen through its eye expression changing as it immediately retracts its nerves, with Mayuri stating that it possesses a very intriguing power, as he's going to enjoy testing several drugs on its nervous system. Pernida totally loses its composure as it breaks out from its hooded cloak, thanks to Mayuri taking advantage of this single weakness. In chapter 638, when its nerves enter the right arm of Mayuri, he immediately reconfigures the arrangement of his nerves, blood vessels, and muscles, thus rendering Pernida unable to control his arm. So if a structure of a body part which is invaded by Pernida's nerves is altered, it can no longer be controlled by the QUINCY. In chapter 643, when Mayuri takes back the brain of Nemu from Pernida, he demonstrates that he is able to repel the nerves of Pernida by releasing creating a wave of concentrated spiritual pressure. Pernida is not only one of the most unique QUINCY within Yhwach's army, it's also the most distinctive character in the series. When it isn't using its schrift ability, Pernida is also able to summon a bow and arrow, as the bow is formed between its index and ring finger as it fires off arrows from the bow using its thumb. In chapter 640, it's also revealed that it can create smaller bows on the tips of its fingers in order to fire several arrows at once. In chapter 640, we see that Pernida's arrows have nerves which are attached to them, as it can also use its nerves to spread across the ground and grab any arrows which miss its target. Like this arrow which was bent around and fired towards Mayuri's back, as Nemu was forced to intervene to protect her captain. As you can see, the Compulsory has a lot of very unique applications, and it's a schrift ability that I cannot wait to see adapted into the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. While I don't think that the anime needs to expand upon Mayuri vs Pernida, since it is one of the most fleshed out fights from the manga, it would still be cool to see some more unique applications of the Compulsory. So for now, we have reached the point of the video where I do want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about Pernida's schrift ability? How does it compare to other broken abilities like the Miracle or the X-Axis? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about this schrift, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.